Well, the issue I spoke about here today concerns a United States Supreme Court case which will be argued sometime next month. It's called Zivotofsky versus Clinton, Clinton being Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, and it concerns the right of a U.S. citizen born in Israel, in Jerusalem, to have the country Israel put on his passport. As of now, the United States policy is to simply put down the word Jerusalem for the city, but to leave the space calling for the country blank.
And what is the reason for that?
Well, what's interesting is that Congress, back in 2002, passed a law requiring the State Department to include the word Israel on passports and on what are called certificates of foreign birth. The State Department takes the position that that's an infringement upon the President's exclusive power to control and deal with American foreign policy, and therefore they felt that even though President Bush signed that law, or signed the legislation into law, but he found that that subsection, which directed the State Department to insert the word Israel in the space, was simply advisory and not mandatory. What I pointed out here was that the statutory language uses the word shall, not may, not could, but it says shall do it. But yet, nevertheless, President Bush issued a signing statement in which he said that he will view that as being advisory, not mandatory.
And we're talking here about one word, of another word, but it's much more than that. What is the meaning of this whole issue, the legislation and everything else?
Well, the whole issue is actually a very significant one, and it goes to the question of whether Israel has sovereignty over the city of Jerusalem. Not only the United City, which would include the old city, but even the new city. And it has been consistent United States policy from 1948 that to take the position that Israel is not sovereign over Jerusalem, but rather the question of Jerusalem's sovereignty is to be determined ultimately by resolution between the parties. I guess the parties meaning, at this stage of the game, Israel and the Palestinians, although back in 1948 there was no such thing as the Palestinians, but nevertheless that's been consistent United States policy. Congress, on the other hand, has taken a far different position, and Congress is fully prepared and has said on any number of occasions that it is prepared to recognize Israel as having sovereignty over Jerusalem, which is, of course, the capital of Israel.
So do you think things could change? I mean, we're also talking, of course, about the embassy issue. Could anything really change, or this is how things are and this is how things will be?
Well, the embassy issue is a little different, actually, because although Congress passed a statute requiring the United States Embassy to be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, it also provided an out such that if the U.S. President makes a determination, and that's a determination to be made every 6 months, that the issue is one which adversely affects American foreign policy, the President could delay the move of the embassy. No such provision was included within this, what I'll call passport legislation. So the executive branch of the government, the President, has absolutely no discretion whatsoever as far as Congress saw it. What will happen, I guess at this stage of the game is anybody's guess, assuming the Supreme Court rules in favor of the Zivotofskys, who are demanding that the statute be applied to them, then that presumably will be the end of it. On the other hand, if for some reason the Supreme Court either rules against them or decides for whatever reason that it doesn't have the authority to deal with the question, then the next issue will be how to get further enforcement of the congressional legislation. That's a question of perhaps getting Congress to apply even more pressure on this question. That Congress does have the ability to do these things. Congress, for example, could withhold funding of the State Department for any of the State Department's activities or certain of the State Department's activities until it follows through with the congressional demand. Whether Congress will do that or not is another question.